Trade wars between the United States and China have escalated over the last 24 hours. It is now in a situation where the US Fed has accused China of currency manipulation. The People's Bank of China has responded angrily. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has started his Twitter tirades against China again, and global markets are feeling the heat. Decoding now the extent of damage this trade war can do to the global economy as well as India are Jayant Dasgupta, former ambassador to the WTO, Professor Abhijit Das, Center for WTO Studies, IIFT, and Santosh Rao, Head of Research and Partner at Manhattan Venture Partners. Welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us on the show this evening. Let me come to Mr. Dasgupta by first putting into perspective how bad this is. Now, we've been seeing some version of this, you know how we say in India, tutu meme, between the US and China for over a year now. Is this now much worse?
I think this trade war is escalating. When the G20 meeting had been held last December, there was talk of the US and China sorting it out through bilateral talks. Then in May, the talks broke down and the US raised its tariffs by 15%, from 10 to 25% on $200 billion worth of Chinese imports into the US. Then the two leaders again met in Osaka in June, and there was some indication that it could perhaps lead to some reduction in the tensions, but that is hope that has been belied. And the US president has announced his intention to impose tariffs on 10% tariffs on another $300 billion worth of Chinese imports into the US from 1st September. The latest is the US accusing the Chinese of currency manipulation, because the Chinese yuan in many years has now gone above the 7 yuan per dollar rate, and it is now currently at about 7.119. So that gives some kind of an advantage, temporary advantage to Chinese exporters to the US. But the Chinese have of course refuted any such claim of the US that it is involved in currency manipulation. And the economists are also saying that based on the bilateral trade flows, the Chinese exports to the US have come down.
Yeah.
The US exports to China have also come down. But the problem is that if the Chinese are exporting more and the Americans are exporting less to China, the Chinese yuan is likely to go up. I mean, in terms of go down in terms of its value in terms of against the dollar.
Okay, let me come to Mr. Das to put into perspective what this means for India. So far, the conversation and the narrative here has been that US and China and this trade spat could yield some advantages for India. And there has been a lot of analysis on whether it has or has not. Are we coming to the stage where this fight could turn out to be destructive and harmful to the global economy, including India?
I never had any doubts in my mind that looking at possible gains for India from the US-China trade war was really not the right perspective on it. What has the trade war done? It has enhanced uncertainty in international trade. It has made the international trading environment more unpredictable. Supply chains have been disrupted. There has been a greater erosion in respect for trade rules. And there is also a possibility of diversion of exports which were initially intended from China to United States to other countries, including India. So I, for one, never thought earlier, and I continue to hold that view, that we are really not likely to be any gainer of the trade war. Some economists have projected that US investments into China might get relocated. Yes, we are seeing such trends, but they are not getting relocated to India. They are getting relocated to other countries, perhaps Vietnam. So I do not see the prospect of there being any winners in the trade war, including India. In fact, it will make the international trading environment more difficult for India in the coming few months.
Get an opening comment from you before I come to you with the India perspective. How are you looking at what is brewing between US and China right now? Do you see this latest round of rhetoric and angry statements escalating, or will we see a pause for some time?
That for me?
Yes, Mr. Rao.
Yeah. So, I just heard the earlier comments. That's fine. All this disruption and all that was expected. But I think we are way beyond that. Donald Trump is way beyond that. He's ready to invest his political capital to get the things right. It's more about intellectual property rights. It's about leveling the playing field. So he understands that, and the previous governments understood that. And China has gone back to its traditional playbook of promising things and never coming through with that. So I think that's what's happening. In this case, Trump is staying the course. He's ready to go all in and saying, until we get this, he's not going to back off. So both have anchored down. Let's see who blinks. At this point, looks like US is still in a strong position. The economy is still good. Inflation is very low. Things are going fine. Let's see how long it'll go. I mean, of course, we have election year next year, and things might soften. Hopefully, there will be some kind of a compromise. But at this point, the mood here in the Trump administration, apparently from the comments and all that, is that they're ready. They're going to anchor down and wait for China to blink.
The sentiment of election year is something that you can see in some of the latest tweets as well, like the one from President Trump, where he says, as they have learned in the last 2 years, our great American farmers know that China will not be able to hurt them, in that their president has stood with them and done what no other president would do, and I'll do it again next year if necessary. Mr. Rao, the question is tackling what some say are plausible grievances with China, including those on intellectual property rights, etc., with a trade tariff war. That has been the approach so far. Now, does it seem like that course of action has run its length and could begin to backfire? Is that view now forming where you are now back in the United States?
No, not at this point. I think what, as someone pointed out earlier, there's some shuffling going on in the supply chain. Things are moving out of China. There was some report today that about 5 or 10 companies have already moved out. So I think all these are going to slowly bleed into the Chinese economy. So overall, we haven't seen any drastic change. Yes, we are not going to get those cheap shoes maybe, and in the end from China and all that stuff. So people have to essentially give up cheap goods for a bigger gain, and that's the mood here at this point. So we'll see. At this point, we haven't reached a pain threshold. We haven't crossed that. So people are ready to stay the course. The economy is still going strong. So we'll wait and see. But at this point, US is still strong.
Dasgupta, just to take the conversation ahead when we're talking about impact for India, one, of course, is if there is a depressing kind of situation in the global economy, India suffers as well. But on the other hand, it is also a matter of, I would say, habit in the way now the US deals with the rest of the world on any trade issues. And we may see the spillover that, or we are already seeing the spillover that with India and the United States on trade, isn't it? Where the Trump administration maybe has got, quote unquote, a little trigger happy, where you know that slapping trade sanctions or increasing trade tariffs gets the job done or gets the eyeballs, and India has been at the receiving end of that as well, isn't it?
It is true that India has also been at the receiving end of some aggressive statements coming out from the White House. But then, the European Union, Japan, Canada, Mexico, they have all been getting similar messages. So that is there, but there are a few outstanding issues which the Americans have been raising vis-a-vis India persistently, and we have been holding talks, bilateral talks with them. The Commerce Minister is scheduled to meet the USTR in a few weeks' time, and then finally I think the Prime Minister will also have a meeting with President Trump sometime next month. So hopefully the issues that can be resolved will get resolved, and the ones which need further discussions and possibly movements on those issues are difficult, will have to remain on hold for some time. I wanted to make one point. The US Chamber of Commerce in a statement issued recently has asked for a rollback of all the tariffs that the US has imposed in the past 2 years, because it has started hurting the US industry very much. So the US industry is also not favor of continuing with this trade war, tariff war vis-a-vis not only China but all the other countries as well for an indefinite period of time. The second aspect which has been pointed out by a previous speaker is that President Trump has now embarked on an election mode. So he will find it difficult to back off and to enter into an agreement or accept an agreement which does not quite meet with his rhetoric of getting the Chinese to bow down, and the Chinese will also find it very difficult to back off because of various reasons. So this is a situation which is fraught with a great deal of uncertainty, not only for US and China but for international trade as well, and for India, because the global value chains have been disrupted in no mean manner, and of course investment flows have also been disrupted, and there is some shifting of industries from China to other countries, though we have not had the benefit of any industry shifting to India as yet, but possibly that could take place if this
but Mr. Dasgupta, that was my question.
For very long.
Yes, but that was my question a little while earlier to Abhijit Das, and I'll ask that question to you again. That whenever these as of now notional benefits do accrue to India, would they be then outweighed by the global chaos that could ensue if this trade war goes any further? And neither side is showing any signs of backing down. We are really optimistic if we are hoping for some degree of measure to come in.
I think when things are so uncertain, and of course there are limitations on production capacities, on the quality of products, the technology involved, so in a short run we can't make adjustments and fill in the gap which has been created by China's partially evacuating some space. So we will have to look for more permanent gains in the form of investments fresh investments coming into India rather than going into China. And if companies want to shift, for instance US companies want to shift from China, they could perhaps think of India along with alternative destinations like Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, etc., and Mexico, and come to India. But we will have to create the right environment for such investments to come to India.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we've been talking about that, of course, through the course of the show as well. But Abhijit Das, how far do you see this going? What are your predictions for the kind of trajectory this trade war will take, and what the global impact could be?
First, we need to recognize that unlike what President Trump might think, trade wars are not easy to win. Second point is that the trade war is really literally getting bigger by the day, but it's really not achieving the economic objectives of President Trump. Number one, the deficit has not declined in the United States. President Trump has so far failed to squeeze concessions from China. It's really not about tariffs. Tariff is really the big stick which the United States is using to compel China to come onto the negotiating table as well as to keep China on the negotiating table, the main issue is really superiority or dominance in high technology. So what we are seeing through the trade war is an attempt by the United States to restrict the ambitions of China to advance in high technology industry.
Okay.
It's very unlikely that China will give up its ambitious plans. So I do suspect that what we are seeing in some manner will keep on spiraling out of control. Okay. And the way the two leaders of China and United States have invested huge amount of prestige, I do not see how they can wriggle out of it. And I'm sure even they do not know how to end the trade war.
Well, that's a scary thought. Mr. Rao wants to come in. Yes, Mr. Rao.
Yeah, I just want to add, I heard all the arguments here, but I think this time it is different. Trump wants a structural change, and that's going to take some time. And I think for the first time, the rest of the world agrees that China does not play a fair game. And this is the first time the world is in a position to squeeze China. So they need the concessions. Yes, there will be gamesmanship. Yes, they will hold off. But in the end, and in fact, in one of their statements, there appears to be some room for compromise. So hopefully they'll come through. But you have to realize, this is, US has lost a lot of jobs and everything. I mean, you've heard the full argument about why he's going after China. He just wants a level playing field. And if they can just honor intellectual property, if they can open up the market, you will see that China will boom again.
So Rao, that the rest of the world sees Trump with as reasonable eyes as you do. So it's
well, in the end, I think US does fall the short. So they will drive the whole economy, and right now they are doing very well. And that's why he's doing it. He's done the calculus. He has all the free traders in his cabinet. Larry Kudlow is the biggest free trader. They all agree that tariffs don't work. But in this case, it's different. They have to get the concession. This is the best.
We're not getting into the middle of this US-China tariff war and taking sides here, though we love to have a good debate with all sides. We are interested in the Indian perspective, and one can only hope that the damage that will take place when these two giants slug it out does not dampen spirits across the global economy. And in that sense impact India as well. So it's a wait and watch situation from every angle. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the debate this evening.